welcome to Pulp. My name is Jake Swick, and today we're going to discuss Starborn. But first about the author. Andre Norton, or Alice Mary Norton, was born February 17, 1912, and died in 2005 at the age of 93. She took the pen name Andre because the primary audience for fantasy and science fiction at the time was adolescent boys, and she figured that they wouldn't give her stories a chance if they knew they were written by a woman.
You don't need a man to get where you want to go in life.
So this librarian with a secret wrote over 300 published titles over her 70-year career. She has been named the SFWA Grandmaster and the Gandalf Grandmaster of Fantasy. So as I start each new novel review, I'm committed to going into it without bias and with as little knowledge of the work as possible. But my first foray into the world and genre of science fiction pulp puts my lack of experience on full display because, as many of you know, Andre Norton was kind of a big deal. So it seems as though in my attempts to find that hidden gem, this buried treasure, this new classic, I am digging in an area that's been fully excavated. Being one of the first pulp novels that I purchased, I decided to start my reviews here on Starborn just due to one fact, and one fact alone, and that is how utterly engaging the cover is. I mean, look at this. The promise of excitement, danger, and good old-fashioned gladiatorial combat all in beautiful, hand-painted glory. Simply put, the cover is fantastic, but does the book deliver? We'll get into that in a second. But first, let's talk about the novel a bit. Starborn was published in 1957 as a hardcover, and later that same year, this Ace paperback edition that I own was published. It is 186 pages and would have set you back 45 cents back in the day. The story revolves around two men on the planet Astra. Terran-born Raph Kirby is an inexperienced flitter pilot on an exploratory voyage to Astra, and the hunky Astra-born human Dalgard, who can telepathically speak to animals. Raph lands in the ruins of an advanced city and is suspicious of the planet's strange alien race who greet his crew. Initially, they seem friendly enough, but soon the aliens start to do some questionable things, hinting at a darker side. But Raph's crew is not the first contact for Astra. There's a human colony there already, although primitive. Dalgard is on a man journey with his knife brother, the merman Suri. They enter the same city as Raph and his crew and face many dangers, including the Snake Devils. Their voyage brings the two men together as they uncover a plot that could threaten the entire world. The original hardcover edition of Starborn goes from anywhere from $100 to $220, while this Ace paperback version, which came out the same year, you can pick up for $3 to $5. But first, let's talk about the good. The world building. Not necessarily the world building of Astra, but the expanded universe is actually very well realized. I discovered afterwards that Starborn is the sequel to The Stars Are Ours, kind of a loose sequel a couple centuries later, which record how humans first made that voyage to Astra and fleeing the tyrannical Pax government. These events are referenced quite often and are, to me, the most interesting parts of the story. There are some instances of very good creative writing. Andre Norton does a very good job of grounding you in this world when she wants to. In particular, when our characters are in a cave or in a swamp or in a forest, it's like her creative writing just comes alive. Whereas when we're in a city or in a spaceship, we are left with almost zero details. But there were some instances, some descriptive moments that the prose and just her ability to make you feel like you're in this world was actually very good, if not very inconsistent. And now, the bad. This book is fast-paced, but often to its detriment. Things are constantly happening, but we aren't often told why. And even when we are, many of those times the reasons are kind of unclear or not explained very well or just don't make sense. Because of this, I found myself backtracking quite a bit, thinking I missed something. Like, why is this character doing this at this moment? What is happening? And it just turns out that it's moving too fast and things are not being properly explained. Ambiguity can be a powerful tool in the hands of a skilled writer and a clever story, but that's just not what was happening here. When both main characters finally get together, the story unfolds from both their points of view. Now you ask, how does that work? It doesn't. The third issue I have, and this one's kind of a small nitpick, but we never really got this battle that we were promised on the cover. We did have Dalgard and a merman and this huge snake devil. We had this scene, but right before the battle could take place, somebody throws a space grenade under the monster and it blows up. Now, this Deus Ex Machina space grenade was introduced in the 11th hour as being a part of a Terran officer's standard self-defense kit. What? I don't know who needs to hear this, but grenades are not good for self-defense. There's one particular passage where Raph Kirby, our hero, is accused of being racist, and he kind of half-heartedly denies it, but then his misgivings are proven correct shortly after this, and it's kind of I'd say a mixed message at best. From my research after reading this book, I've learned that Andre Norton kind of handles some racial stereotypes in some clunky ways in some of her other books and novels. From what I gather is she's not a racist person. She's probably pretty progressive at the time. However, still clearly a product of her age. Enough good, enough bad. Let's talk about the fun. Now, one thing I will say about Starborn. This book is filled with fun moments, and all of them are unintentional. The first one is, of course, sci-fi names. I love a good sci-fi name. We got characters like Fork and Kordov, Dard Nordis. These sound like dads trying not to swear in front of their kids. Fork and Kordov. Alien creatures. The alien creatures in this book are hilarious. They're just an amalgam of two different things we know. Duck dogs, moth birds, water worms, hoppers, which are just bunnies and monkeys mixed together. Every time there was a weird alien on the page, I was laughing my head off. Dalgard, as we learned from the first page, can telepathically communicate with animals, which is hilarious. But it made me think, the only other Andre Norton work I'm familiar with, she has a primitive protagonist who can communicate with animals. Even though Raph Kirby is one of our main protagonists, we actually spend quite a bit more time with Dalgard's knife brother, Suri, who's a merman. And the mermen are hilarious unintentionally just in their description. Now, picture mermen, right? In your head, picture mermen. Now, if it is not a round, fuzzy creature who's gray with rainbow-tipped fur and fish scales for arms and legs and a big round head and big round eyes, then you're not picturing Andre Norton's merman. Merman! And finally, at one point, Raph takes a break to address the audience, and we learn rule number 1 of space travel, which is, of course, don't eat the aliens' food.
Roast snapper, my favorite. I want...
Check, please.
Now, I'm not a space traveler, but I would think that rule number 1 of space travel is don't open the door! So what's the verdict? Thrift shop. You'll find this book there, and that's where it belongs. I know Norton fans may come after me, but I can only judge this book and not on her whole body of work. It was the low end of mediocre. The plot was flimsy, the pacing was amateurish, and the most interesting part of the whole story was the lore of the prequel. But perhaps the most egregious issue I have with the book was the lack of motivational clarity. I can't be expected to care about what's happening if I don't know why it's happening. Maybe the world and the dynamics and the events of the story were fully fleshed out in Andre Norton's mind, but what was there did not make it onto paper. There was an attempt at some bigger existential ideas, especially towards the end. However, there just wasn't the time and the space to fully explore and expound upon these ideas. And so again, it was just another thing that was frustrating. Starborn does have a fantastic cover, and that alone is what saves it from returning to pulp. And that's my review of Starborn. What do you think? Do you agree? Disagree? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'd love to have you join me next week as we review The Escape Orbit.
What? I love garbage.